Well, it's Wednesday, the 16th of November, 2022. This is WESN. I'm Andy Johnson, and this is AM Prime, this edition. Let's tell you what's happening over the next hour and a half or so. We will be talking with a Dr. Nigel Loha. He's a veterinary officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries. The question is what is called rabies in Trinidad and Tobago. What is it and how to deal with it? Why is it present in our midst? We'll get to that on the other side of this hour in the program. We're also talking with Mr. Rishi Sukai. He's the president of the Shogunas Chamber of Industry and Commerce. The question is the selection process for a commissioner of police. That has been extended. There are reports about it in the paper as we speak. We will get to that when we get to that with you minutes from now. But right now, let's take a look at this story in one of the newspapers this morning. Is written by reporter Ricky Ramdas, and that's in the Express. An application for judicial review has been filed at the High Court challenging the government's decision to postpone local government elections until next December. The application was filed yesterday by attorneys representing social and political activist Ravi Balgovind Maharaj, who is contending that the move to extend the life of the current council by a year was unlawful and unconstitutional. The team of attorneys, led by former Attorney General Anand Ramlogan, is seeking to have the court declare the decision was null and void and of no legal effect. Well, to help us understand that and to take a position one way or the other on the issue, our guest now, Mr. Lennox Sankasing. He's an attorney, but he likes to be seen as an advocate for proper local government decision-making and organization in Trinidad and Tobago going back decades. He's agreed to talk with us on this, the postponement of the local government elections in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Sankasing, always good to see you. Thanks for coming on. I think you're muted.
Yes, Andy.
Right, good. Good to see you. So let's go back to when the decision was taken between then and now that that legal action has been taken. What was your first response to this, and what's the implication of it?
Well, the legal action you're talking about?
Well, no, the government's decision to postpone, to push back the staging of local government elections.
Well, this is more or less the norm. In fact, over the last 20, 30 years or so, there have been several instances where local government elections was postponed. As a matter of fact, under the Manuel administration, and they postponed it 4 times consecutively: 2006, then 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2010. And it has been happening a lot, especially with situations where the government did not appear to be ready, or they were working on reform measures and so on. So this is, I would say, normal. Although it's not a desirable course of action, but it has happened several times before.
So let's talk about that then. It's normal. So that is it that political administrations believe that so because it's normal, we should think it's no big thing?
Well, not really. There must be some good reason why they want to do it, but I suppose they don't really have to state that. But if they have any regard for the population, they will state what are their reasons and so on. I think their reasons right now is that it's part and parcel of the reform process, and they want to get that reform process moving before they have the elections. And they have already passed the act in Parliament. It's waiting to be proclaimed, so I think basically what the persons who filed the application for judicial review, and although it's a matter in court and it's sub judice, but sub judice doesn't mean that you cannot discuss it. What sub judice means is that you cannot discuss it in a way to influence the outcome in one way or the other. So I think we can discuss it. We wouldn't go deep into it to whether say whether it's good or bad or whatever, but we can just analyze it. So what they have done is they have taken action on the ground that it's not, strictly speaking, it doesn't appear to be an amendment of the act itself under local government. They have come by proclaiming the sections that are relevant in this particular situation would be Section 11, and it is not really an amendment to the old outgoing law, but they have taken just one part of the new proposed law and proclaim that and going on that basis. I think that is their ground, and they have listed several reasons why they want that to be so. But I don't think we could go into those reasons,
Right, but taken as they are, where do you come down? You support the rationale or not?
Well, that's a good question. Government felt it necessary to do this, I suppose. I don't think I can argue with them on that. We have gotten accustomed to local government bodies being, elections being postponed periodically. I think they might have good reason in the sense that they want to put the act in place and do the entire thing, and any new councillors coming in will be subject to the new act in its entirety. So I think that's their ground, and some people are arguing with that. They may have their reasons. It's not for me to say at this time whether those reasons are good or bad.
You're saying you're not in a position to say at this time whether the reasons are good or bad, right? It's not strictly political?
Well, it's political in the sense that, political parties have done it, but it's developmental, I think, in the sense that the government is saying, look, listen, here we have this new act we passed. We want to put the whole thing in place before the new elections come up and so on. That may or may not be a good reason. It appears to be a good reason to me. And but the other side is saying, no, man, you can't do it that way. You have to. There are people expecting an elections. People are waiting to contest. Some people are dissatisfied, which is what they have said in their application. Dissatisfied with the existing representation, and a lot of people looking forward to new representation because they have needs and those needs are not being satisfied, and so on. So whether that is political or not, you can determine that. But that's the framework around the arguments and so on.
Okay, and you mentioned earlier the question of how, I'm going to use the term, so we have to dance around the issue because it matters before the court, and this question of sub judice. Yes. A lot of times people seem to use that simply because they don't want to speak on an issue because it's before the court, and not simply because it's before the court it becomes sub judice, right? And you have to tiptoe around what the issues are, what you talk about, how you talk about it. What are some of those issues that you can't get into or you won't get into because that could get you in trouble?
Well, the main issue would be the government statement as to why it is necessary to extend it. And as I've said before, they're claiming that that there's a comprehensive new act. In fact, this new act is and deals with numerous changes. It has lifted local government qualitatively and qualitatively. So it's a new dimension of local government. The councils have a greater degree of independence. Instead of just an advisory body, in some cases, they can select their own employees. They can manage their own decisions. They can spend their money more or less as they see fit. So it's a huge qualitative change, and I can see why they will want to say, look, let us put the whole thing in place. Let us have the new group coming in, and then we'll have the elections. So I can see good ground for that.
So it's not advisable from anybody's point of view to go ahead with the elections while these things take their time to fall into place, or is it such that you want to have those things in place before the new administrations come in? It's better that way. Could one say that?
Should I go that far? But it would seem to me that that would be the best course of action, to have all those things in place and then have the election and have a new slate of councillors coming in. There are about 136 councillors will be taking office and so on into 14 local government bodies, and that's a large group of people. And let them start from scratch. Let them start from the beginning. Let them start with the new legislation, which is so different to the old law, and so on. That I would think along those lines. But the other side may have good arguments.
Yeah. And the question is, so there's going to be more autonomy and more authority for the local government bodies. We're talking about sort of putting the arrangements for the property tax in their hand, giving them more powers to do things that they don't have now. And you want to make sure that those things are in place when they get going, correct?
Yes, that's exactly the point. There are a lot more responsibilities that they have widened. For instance, there's a greater amount of community involvement. They have removed the honorarium, which is viewed as a stipend. Taxes are not normally paid on honorarium. Now they have salaries. Councillors, in fact, councillors are temporary, not a temporary sense that, well, they have, almost all the councillors have other jobs. In fact, what I've noticed is that when somebody's elected as a councillor and they do not have a job elsewhere, the party find a job for them. For instance, if it's let's say in one of the corporations in South or anywhere, the party in charge of that corporation will find a job for that other person in another corporation as a supervisor or a checker or some kind of thing, a daily paid worker. So so they make sure that their councillors are employed fully elsewhere. But under this new legislation, this is a full-time, councillors are full-time jobs and they're not supposed to be employed elsewhere. That's a big change. And then there are questions of planning and development. Now they're in charge of town country planning up to simple developments. I believe is up to 20 lots or less. You go straight to the regional corporation, you get all the approvals there, which is a huge change. And there are many other, I have a little list here, so I can just pull out.
Yeah, I want to get to a couple of the details in the story here and what is being called for with this legal action. But before that, I know there are things you probably wanted to say about the importance, as you see it, of the local government system, why you think that is important as it is, or should be even of greater importance than it is in the question. That's where you come in a lot of times about the pointing out why local government, a system of local government is so important and should be held sort of in higher esteem as it is even to this point.
Right. I think that's the $64,000 question. So local government, what is it? What do we have? And where are we going with it? Now, if you look at the existing situation, you will see in the existing act, that is the old law, you will see it's very comprehensive too, more than 200 sections, very voluminous. But you will see that that there is very little contact and integration with the people that are being served. I have made this statement on numerous occasions, and perhaps it's a guide as to what how effective local government is and how much it interacts with the people. If you stand up in any main street in the community you come from, let's say you're from Siparia, and you stand up on the Southern Main Road in Siparia and you ask anyone, the first 10 people passing by, you say, "Sir, madam, do you know the name of the councillor in your area?" The person will look at you, as a befuddled, and yeah, my councillor. Well, I think there's a councillor, but I can't remember his name. I don't know his name. I have never really seen him, and so on. So I don't know his name. And you will find 9 out of 10, or perhaps 10 out of 10 will tell you that. I don't know if you will agree with me with respect to that particular point, but I have done that myself in the Couva area, and found out that the vast majority of people cannot remember the names of their councillors. That's one. Two, local government, the essence of local government is really the involvement of people in decisions that affect their basic needs. As a matter of fact, you will find that is the foundation of all development. Development is based on people. And therefore, the most fundamental way in which people can develop is be involved in the decisions that affect their basic needs. Whether it's water, sanitation, recreation, education for their kids, whatever it is. If there's no involvement, people are not really moving forward because they cannot really have a say in what's happening around them. Now, that is the essence of local government. And in my opinion, no political party has really strived to, to achieve that purpose in their dealings with local government. So local government has remained almost something separate and apart from the people that it was intended to serve, and that's a major flaw. This legislation does go a little bit in that direction, but the implementation of that will depend on the councillors and the council. For instance, this new proposed legislation, they talk about more community involvement by the corporation. They talk about a greater degree of service. They talk about an audit committee in which members of the public are invited to serve on that audit committee and things like that. But whether the councillors will knowledgeable enough or conscious enough to take that step forward to bridge that gap between the council and the people. Another example is, for instance, there is the council, how they have their meetings. You have committee meetings, like your health committee meetings, your infrastructure committee meetings, and so on. And these committees meet during the month. And at the end of the month, there's something called a statutory meeting, where all the decisions of the various committees are brought to the statutory meeting and then approved. Once it's approved at the statutory meeting, it's now binding on the corporation and the people they serve, and so on. Those statutory, the only meeting that is open to the public is really those statutory meetings where I find a lot of business being discussed. And if you go to any corporation and so on, and you go to the statutory meeting, if you find any member of the public listening and attending those meetings, you'll be very lucky. It just doesn't happen. So this shows the general disconnect between the people and local government responsibilities and so on. And that, to me, that is a major flaw. That's a major challenge, and especially societies like ours come from slavery, colonialism, indentureship, and so on. But generally speaking, people under those situations are not involved at all in decisions that affect them. They've come from that kind of structured society to move into this kind, and therefore it is so important to move away from the manner in which government was run under colonialism and that sort of thing. To this, there should be really a major drive to get people involved so that they could move out of that kind of situation.
Yeah, because there was a time when, I mean, in my early days of growing up, I mean, I was still under 10 years old, and the local government representatives in the part of the country where I'm from, I know some of their names up to now. There was a man named Medford Colley, there was a man named Villabera, there was Sheila Lamourel, there was a man named Conrad Raymond Cotoy. These are names that I remember from that period, and it would have seemed that in those days local government was where it's at, and I remember these names more than, well, not necessarily in my case, because I know who the members of parliament were in that time. You had a man named Alexis, and then you had other people after him. Dr. Richards and Ian Anthony, coming right up to this point. But it seemed though that in those days the local government representatives were more known, and they were doing more, and they weren't getting into the newspapers, in the media as much, but somehow they were more on the ground. People knew them more than is the case now.
Yes, of course, yes, that's very good. You remember so many of them. That's really good. Especially Sheila Lamourel, who was the most outstanding councillor. You recall that she started something like a Susulan project down in her area.
Yes.
Right, and it was very successful. She got a lot of land for persons at a very, very cheap price, much lower than the market value, just like what Susuland was doing.
Yeah, and there's a fabulous housing community on those lands now.
Right. I hope it's named after Sheila Lamourel, Sheila Lamourel Development or something like that. She should be honored in that way.
Yeah, and she was vociferous, and her voice was heard and known, sometimes challenging the decisions of the higher ups. Of course, this was in the PNM, and she made no bones about how she felt about her people on the ground there, and so on. You have a man now in Cedrus, Shankar Tilak Singh, similar kind of advocate for the people on the ground.
Yes.
So this is an attempt to even strengthen those forces some more. You think that will happen, given more autonomy and authority on the ground?
Yes. But Sheila Lamourel is definitely a very powerful woman. Her family is from Quarry Village, actually, basically, but she was from...
Yeah, well, she was a Simon, and she was the sister of the late, great Lord Bryner, right?
Oh, okay.
From that part of the country. But there's something in the reporting that I want to get at. And in a lot of cases, you have, this is something that comes up in legal matters. So the petitioners are asking for an order of certiorari. What is that?
That's for the court to do something, to take action, order that something be done. Like mandamus or to quash something that has happened before. That's basically it. Yes.
All right. So in your view, then, as we wrap it up, there's no big thing in waiting a little while still. But the petition also wants the court to decide that if there's no election coming up, that the people who are supposed to have vacated their positions after December 2nd, well, December 3rd, that those vacancies should remain. People should not be allowed to remain in those positions after that date.
Yes, that's what they are saying. Yes, and I'm saying that it has happened so many times before that it has almost become a norm. Or it should not be a norm. There should be good reason why you should extend the term. But in this situation here, one may look at it and on one side, one may say that, listen, I think it's a good idea to extend because when the new councillors come in, let them come in under a new set of laws, totally, and start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be caught in an old set of laws and halfway through their term, they have a new set of laws to guide them. So I think my own view is that it's a good reason, but other people may disagree with that.
Yeah,
but I'm sure.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it there, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Lennox, thank you, Singh. We're going to take a break, much more to come. When we come back, we're talking with Mr. Richie Sukai. He's president of the Shogunas Chamber of Industry. We're talking about the selection process for a new commissioner of police. That as well has been extended to sometime after the end of the year. Stay with us. This is AM Prime.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
Whether it's a room for 1, 2, 3 or more, there's a room waiting with the ocean view almost to your door. Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, the perfect getaway when you don't want to travel far. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Crown Point, Tobago. Call 639-8571 for your reservation.
Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. PCU. Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
get confused, they go into the grocery and they're like, you know what, I want to change my life and I want to eat better.
As exciting as the front of a label looks, the back of the label is really where it's at. If something has less than 5% in that particular serving of that nutrient, then it's probably a low source. If it has 20 or more, then it's a high source.
Smoothies, I'm not really into that because the texture, or I don't like what people put in theirs, but the good thing about a smoothie is that you can make it your own. You can literally put whatever you want. If you really like bananas, you can put bananas. If you really don't like bananas, don't put bananas. Like, it's really that simple.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Living in victory every day.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program. Well, this is another illustration of how we deal with things of the day, the matters we address on this program from episode to episode. So in the last discussion, there are reports about what we were talking about in the newspapers this morning. It's the same with this. And so we're reading from today's edition of the newspapers. This is the Express again. The headline, the story, the POLSC, that's the Police Service Commission, no top cop until 2023. The country will have to wait until January 31st next year for a new commissioner of police, as the process to select a top cop will not be completed until then. The Police Service Commission, in a statement yesterday, said the reason for the delay is that more time is needed for the thorough vetting of all candidates. The Police Service Commission advertised earlier this year for a suitable candidate to fill the post of Commissioner of Police, with June 30th as the deadline for applicants. And among those, we just put that in, that is in the reporting here. Among those who applied were former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith and Superintendent Anand Ramesa. To help us understand this, to see to what extent there is rationale for it or agreement in the public space for it, Mr. Rishi Sukai. He's the President of the Sugar Owners Chamber. Good to see you once again, sir.
Good morning, Andy.
Let me just ask
everyone.
you, yeah.
And you're listening and viewing public.
Yeah, let me just start by asking you whether you think after this summit that was held with the Prime Minister and other people in the National Security Council, based on calls by people like yourselves, business leaders across the country, other community leaders calling for the evidence of some action to be taken. First of all, what do you think came out? What do we know that would have come out of that sort of summit among those leaders that will provide any comfort for us?
I think once again, I see another talk shop taking place in Trinidad and Tobago, where we're just not putting a handle on crime where we're supposed to. We're not really serious about changing the way that we do business here in this country. The whole outlook of Trinidad and Tobago in terms of crime is really something to be worrisome about. If you look at the United States recently, shift in ranks, you know, Port of Spain was ranking at 4, and then now they're placed on advisory 3 in terms of travel, and then overall the whole country is on under 3, right? I mean, internationally, we're viewed as, yes, a fun, loving place to come and, you know, you have fun during Carnival. But, you know, when you look at traveling to Trinidad and Tobago and what these advisory does for our country, you know, it's putting a deterrent of visitors who want to come here to actually do business or even to live, right? We're actually losing people daily who are looking to migrate. Young individuals or young families are not safe in Trinidad and Tobago, and they are looking for ways out, which is a sad thing because we have a brain drain taking place when we need to pool our resources, especially our human capital resources, at a time like this to steer our country out of, you know, what we've been seeing the fallout from the pandemic. We understand we're enjoying windfalls from the oil and gas, at least for now, but that's not sustainable. And what are we thinking? Are we thinking of a really sustainable development for our country and not selecting a police commissioner in time, right? It just shows, again, once more, lack of really wanting to change what's going on.
And you have a situation in which a couple of weeks ago, the United States State Department issued an advisory to its citizens, and it called some areas and said some things that some of us felt were inappropriate and they didn't fit us. And there was an issue about that. Just a couple of days ago, they issued another one advising U.S. citizens not to come here. And so that it caused a meeting with the Minister of National Security, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the top diplomat at the U.S. Embassy in Port of Spain. And they came out from that meeting smiling. So one wants to know, well, what they discussed.
Again, we're still waiting to see what are the points that were discussed and some of the key indicators that are coming out from it. However, we can't take those advisory warnings lightly, right? This is something that has been issued by the United States as a travel warning again for their people and their citizens of visiting Trinidad and Tobago. So again, once more, I think we really have to pay focus into what we really want to do in Trinidad and Tobago. If we're looking at our country in terms of diversifying, in terms of looking at medical tourism, sports tourism, and looking to really change from being an oil-based economy to a service sector where we can really support the Caribbean and even Latin America with true service, with the capacity that we have in terms of human capital, I don't think we're in the right track in terms of our trajectory of getting there.
And at the moment, and what is your position, whether individually or as a member as a leader of this business group in that region of Sugar and so on, about the position of the Police Service Commission, saying that it is asking for time to push back this thing. And so what have they been doing?
I believe it's something that they had enough time before in the past to be able to go through and do due diligence on the individuals that are there. Is it that they can't find the right fit? Is it they're looking for an individual that will be able to serve a certain agenda? This is not right. Trinidad and Tobago needs proper leadership in terms of the TTPS to help change the face of our country. We're going down and spiraling on a wrong road, right, especially when it comes to crime.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we see evidence, palpable evidence about the fact that the criminals continue to plan and do their stuff. I mean, this heist on this...
It's brazen. It was literally brazen. And it's not only there. If you could have... I don't know how many people could remember, and this is the problem with our society. We have this short memory, this 7 days memory. But some months back, they broke into Republic Bank, into their safe. They went properly prepared, right? I read the article this morning with the owner of WebSource talking about how these people are shifting from pigfoots to electronic electronic equipment to be able to do break-ins. But to be able to do that, you had to have the resources. You have to have. So we're not talking about just petty petty criminals anymore. These are well-planned, thought-of initiatives.
Precisely, a lot of planning goes into these things.
So we are allowing this to be bred out in our society, right? When they entered into Republic Bank, they came with high-power tools to be able to drill through the top of the safe, right? Then afterwards have enough cutters and welding torches to get into the actual safe itself. And this was all done just opposite a police station right there in Cuba, you know? I could understand, yes, it was a long weekend, right? We may not have the police services, again, passing in those areas, or I'm sure there should be at least scouting the area for any sort of nefarious activities. Are you telling me they saw nothing at all? Nothing that seemed to be out of place?
Yeah, and then the Pennywise heist.
And the Pennywise heist also at the same time, right? Well, again, this is an inside job, but again, we are allowing the criminals the comfort and the ability to go ahead and commit these crimes, right? And where is it that we are putting a stop to them immediately? It's not there.
Yeah, and people are wondering, as you say, in a lot of the cases, to what extent some of these things are the result of inside jobs. And that speculation will continue to rise and to expand, the extent to which there doesn't seem to be intelligence that will meet these things before they happen.
Yeah, and it's really sad that we can't be able to have this predictive intelligence taking place, right? So we're doing all this effort in terms of a due diligence of selecting a police commissioner, right? And in the meantime, these criminals are running havoc through Trinidad and Tobago.
What do you think when you read through these things? What's the real reason why there seems to be this difficulty in the Police Service Commission?
I wish I knew also. Maybe you and I are in the same position. They're doing their due diligence. Okay, we understand this, but it has been so long since I think Commissioner Griffith has been removed from his position. We have the acting Commissioner Jacobs there. We understand they're trying, you know, to deal with the situation with the current resources that they have, but I don't think we're really serious in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'll say it again in terms of solving the crime situation.
You think the acting commissioner is operating at a disadvantage because he doesn't have the flamboyance, if you like, even the arrogance and the kind of presence of his predecessor?
You don't need all that. All you just need is will and the ability to go after these criminals. Once you have the will and tenacity and the ability to go after these criminals and the foresight to say, listen, we need to get this thing done, and proper leadership. Leadership is everything. It doesn't matter if you're a leader as flamboyant as the one before, or you're able to get the job done with less flamboyance. I'm just saying, you know. Proper leadership is needed and guidance, and once resources, in terms of state resources, are managed properly, I'm not saying more resources, but management of these state resources, especially in this situation, I am pretty sure we could put a handle on the situation.
And to what extent it seems as though somewhere in there's consideration about the last fellow, even though he's the head of a political movement trying to form the next government, trying to make alliances with other people, how could he, if that is the case, be still considered as a candidate for Commissioner of Police?
You know, we saw results during his time. I'm not saying no. We saw results where it was a bit better. I'm not saying it was, we were in Gardner.
It wasn't necessarily
exactly
across the board and so on.
But it was better at the same time. You saw results. I don't know if it's because he was be able to, you know, being solidified in his position. It wasn't something as acting. He took a leadership role to be able to change things in TTPS, and also the way that we view security issues in Trinidad and Tobago. And it has to be a holistic view. And I believe that, you know, the individual who they are selected, him or her has a mama task before them to be able to get each institution in this country aligned to really focus on changing the way that we view crime in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Down to customs, national security in terms of the border patrols, immigration, to be able to protect our porous borders, or sort of put a clamp on it right now, have these scanners up and running so that you don't have these illegal guns coming into the country. I know there's issues about the FUL and issuance of the FUL, but at the same time too, some of these FULs were able to save the lives or even deter the criminal elements from entering certain businesses. So you tell me, wouldn't it be better to be able to save your life and your family's, also your employees' life, to be able to be protected in some way along the line? And at the end of the day, we need to have a real holistic view of how we view crime in Trinidad and Tobago, because it's getting out of control.
Yeah, and one of the other issues in here is that a lot of times we sort of get down on the politicians for taking too long to make the decisions they have to make. We don't buy their reasons, their rationales, their excuses. But this is another case in which, so this is an independent commission doing this, of professionals of one kind or another. And this is following a kind of pattern where they say, we need more time. So this is not...
You said it yourself, it's supposed to be an independent body that is electing the
making the selection process and so on.
That's supposed to be an independent process, void of any political interference at the same time. So I believe, honestly, if as government or even opposition in this country, what we would like to do is I would like to see us come together to be able to put a handle on this situation. Have this independent body select the TTP, who should be the new police commissioner as soon as possible. Christmas is around the corner. I am pretty sure all these bandits are looking to see what they are going to get during this time, and it's going to be, let's say, a fiesta for them.
You don't see anything that stands in the way of them completing this merit list, which must go before the parliament.
Well, hopefully they'll get it done before the date they said, but again, nothing is saying exactly why. You have these individuals for the longest while on your merit list, and due diligence, I'm pretty sure, could have been done. What is taking so long with the selection process?
On the broader scale, so the business organizations and prominent business people across the country have been calling for, to some extent, more involvement in this process about developing a crime status response, a crime response status per se. Are you all, to the extent that you could speak to that, are you all satisfied that there is enough sort of consultation and open discussions with the organizations such as the ones you represent on this matter?
We are seeing more, however, more needs to be done, right? We need to be able to get to the root cause of so many problems. Crime is systemic in Trinidad and Tobago. It is starting in the homes of some of these individuals on the depressed areas, and that is then infiltrated outwards. So it is really a holistic view how we look at crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Another thing is that, you know, the business community, even if the government or the Police Service Commission reach out and listen to the pulse of the people on the ground, and maybe do a survey on who they believe should be the next commissioner amongst the merit list. Give everyone the opportunity to select. Let it be a democratic process where you can say the people have selected this individual to be able to be the police commissioner. It is high time that we start changing the way we view crime in Trinidad and Tobago. And I say it and say it again over and over.
Yeah, but for the time being, given the situation as it is, you think that so those kinds of discussions should be held among a broader spectrum of us rather than...
I believe so. It should be a broader spectrum. At the same time, you know, we understand there are certain issues that can be discussed due to, you know, the protection of the national security issues. However, you know, understanding the concerns, understanding where the hotspot areas are, which everybody knows, right? You know, let me draw an example. In the First City area, we have where the cremation site is very close to the a stream of water that leads out to the ocean. Yeah. Boats come in and out from there, fishermen come in and out from there. Yeah. There are a lot of nefarious activities alleged taking place in that area.
In the region of the Temple on the Sea.
Exactly. Well, not only Temple on the Sea, that's in Capucham, I'm talking in Philly City, right? Okay. And there's a very desolate, lonely area in the night, right? And it's very close to, there's a cremation site there, a small cremation site there. However, it's not well monitored. right? And this is a huge problem. We have been hearing about a camera that is going to be allocated there and to be able to monitor that area in such a way. But then, okay, you're setting
And the people there have been calling for a better, more sustained police presence for years.
Correct, they have, and that's the thing. But again, one being resources in terms of manpower is either you have lack of resources, and many times we hear from that oh, we don't have the manpower right now to send to deploy, right? And that is a huge issue that we're having.
And fishermen are constantly under attack from bandits.
The different pirates that you have outside there. But at the same time too, what are we doing to change that? How are we going to curb this situation that we have? And we're still thinking that, well, in our view, that although you have consultation, it must not be a talk shop, which is exactly what comes out from it.
What continues to transpire.
You know, it's more, you have the consultation, you hear lofty ideas, you hear where the TTPS themselves, because Mr. Jacob did come to Shogunas, he explained some of the ideas that they had and initiatives that were supposed to be in place. One of the ones that we were very excited about, a command center, a monitoring command center being set up in Shogunas so that they will be monitoring some of the new cameras and so on. However, again, where's the result? That's months now that initiative was supposed to be deployed.
So plans sound impressive, but the implementation and putting them into effect, there's a gap.
Not there. It's not there.
A gap between, what is it?
Implementation, and then execution, and then results.
Between cup and lip, that was the phrase I was looking for.
Yeah, cup and lip, exactly. You know, between cup and lip. You know, before we actually start to sip the tea, I don't know if we need to blow it before we put it to our lips. But you know, I mean, that is our problem.
What is the level of anxiety among people like you in the business situations, but as we head into this Christmas season?
A lot. I mean, you have more people reaching out to security firms to be able to, you know, beef up security, especially during the Christmas time. We know that the criminal activities are getting worse and worse and worse over time. And at the same time too, some of them are unwilling to trust even the security firms, because as we've seen in many cases, there's so many factors, inside jobs taking place. Who are we going to trust at the end of the day? That's the unfortunate thing.
All right. Is there any you have in mind, people like yourselves, about finding yourselves around the table with whoever in the decision-making process?
We would like to see this view taken holistically by the drive from the Ministry of National Security to sit down and actually listen to what the people have to say. Don't say anything, because we realize that we don't have the answers. We need to listen. We need to come together. We need to form a think tank, how we're going to solve this problem, because only there and then we will be able to create something new. We need to have proper leadership, and I say it again, proper leadership amongst the ranks and file in the TTPS.
Mr. Sukai, thank you very much. As we head up to the top of the hour, let's take a look around the region. Let's begin that, and we want to go to Jamaica now, where they say the customs agencies are reacting to criticism that has been heard at the ports in that country. Let's take a look at that.
The Jamaica Customs Agency is responding to widespread criticism about the delays at the ports. Brokers have been complaining about the length of time it's taking to clear containers.
Now, speaking in Parliament this week, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark said the government is looking at measures to address the issue. But as you'll hear in this report by our business reporter, Javon Keys, the agency says it is not the cause of the delay.
The Jamaica Customs Agency has come under fire for what stakeholders have described as slow processing time in clearing goods at the ports. Representatives from Customs have fired back. Selena Clark-Graham is the Acting Deputy Commissioner of Customs responsible for operations.
The processing of the container has not changed, even with the increased vigilance. So our processes have always remained the same.
Deputy CEO in charge of border protection at Customs, Marlon Lowe, insists that 80% of brokers have been able to clear goods shortly after arrival. He reasoned that delays are oftentimes due to port-side issues.
We really have a logistics problem on our ports. Our ports, the warehouses are small. They rely heavily on labor.
And so if one vessel comes that shouldn't come, you have a problem. And what happened in the last few weeks and days is that you have 2 mega vessels that came at one of the ports. And the port doesn't have the capacity to deal with that.
The other major issue, non-compliance by brokers.
When the rules are not being followed, declarations are not being done properly, goods are not being packed properly, they are not being labeled, we are not getting the advance manifest in time, you're going to have issues with customs. So when you have issues with customs, it's normally because customs have an issue with you, and it is normally because you are not following the process and the procedures.
The main problems?
We have invoice issues. You have issues where importers actually have the freight cut, right? Less than 25% of the freight sometimes is being declared to us.
The Jamaica Customs Agency says the risk management tools have helped to clamp down a number of illicit operators and shipments. But as the high season gets in full gear, the agency says it's prepared to do what it takes to boost efficiency and at the same time maintain protocols.
We do every year at this time, and especially coming up to December, introduce more staff for examination. We use more risk management. Sometimes we take decisions that are really will help facilitation that we have to exercise good judgment on in terms of that balancing act. So we do a lot of stuff, including additional resources.
And as we head up to the news at the top of this hour, again, let's go out with another instance of how crime is affecting us locally and internationally. There's this story in the paper this morning. Again, the headline is UK advisory warns of Trinidad and Tobago crime. Let's tell you what the story begins by saying. The United Kingdom has updated its travel advisory to Trinidad and Tobago regarding crime, safety and security, urging its citizens that there are, quote, high levels of violent crime, unquote, in this country. The update was made November 11th and came mere days after the US advised its nationals to reconsider travel to Trinidad and Tobago because of the crime situation. So that's news of the moment. While we take a break, we go to news at the top of the hour, followed by a continuation of the program. We will be talking about rabies in our midst. Stay with us.
Is your WESN News of the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Shanghai and Port of Spain mayors sign letter of intent to become sister cities. Digicel takes home Social Contribution Award at the World Communications Awards. Valencia man shot dead. And internationally, Zelensky snubs Russia as he addresses G19 at G20. Now for the details. Trinidad and Tobago and China continue to strengthen their bilateral relationship through mutual respect and sustained cooperation. A letter of intent has been signed between Port of Spain Mayor Joel Martinez and the Mayor of the Shanghai Municipal People's Government, Gong Zhon. The event took place at the Port of Spain City Corporation this morning. In his address, Mayor Martinez reaffirmed the Council's commitment to tackling a number of shared priority areas for social, economic and cultural development. This includes poverty alleviation, climate change and green development, digital economy, food security and industrialization, among other focal areas. The signing of the letter of intent signals a continuation of the trade and cultural partnerships between both countries. Mayor Gong Zhen, who has been in office since 2020, recently oversaw the launch of the Shanghai International Sister Cities Hub project, which covers 92 cities from 59 countries and regions around the world. Launched in September 2022, the program aims to build a one-stop service platform for exhibition, trade and communication of sister cities, economy, trade, culture and technology. Digicel Group emerged as the winner of the Social Contribution Award at the 2022 staging of the World Communication Awards. The Social Contribution Award celebrates the service provider demonstrating the greatest positive impact on the market it seeks to address. Digicel's award submission showcased the extensive work the Digicel Haiti Foundation has done in the field of education throughout the nation, building 188 schools, resulting in more than 100,000 Haitian children accessing education in a Digicel-built school each day. Started in 2007 under the patronage of Digicel founder and chairman Dennis O'Brien, the founder in Haiti strives to ensure that communities have a better future by supporting community-based activities with a particular emphasis on those improving access to and quality of early childhood and primary school education. Police are probing the murder of a 20-year-old Valencian man on Monday night. According to reports, police officers were on patrol at around 9:05 p.m. when they received a report of a shooting at Emron Lane. When they arrived, residents led them to the body of Diosran Babulal, aka Dino, on an abandoned lot of land. A district medical officer visited the scene and declared Babulal dead. In international news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on G19 world leaders to end the Russian invasion in a pointed snub to Moscow at the G20 summit. Zelensky appeared in a video speech beamed to leaders gathered for the summit in Bali, Indonesia. Russia is a G20 member, but President Putin is not in Bali, sending his foreign minister Sergei Lavrov instead. Zelensky also pleaded for an extension of a Ukrainian grain export deal due to expire soon. A draft G20 declaration, seen by news agencies, said most countries strongly condemned the Ukraine war and agreed it was exacerbating fragilities in the global economy. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. PCU. Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
Whether it's your family meet and eat or your own personal getaway retreat, a business trip accommodation or a couple's celebration, the Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa has room for you. There's always sumptuous, delicious cuisine and the gym and tennis court for a good workout routine. Then relax by the pool or on the private beach, or just head to the spa. It's also within reach. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Tobago's best beach resort. For reservations, call 639-8571 or check our website.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
Welcome back to the program. We're talking now with Dr. Nigel Loha. He's a veterinary officer at the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries. The question is rabies management in Trinidad and Tobago. I just want to say that in the break, we were talking, and it's a question that I've always had on my mind. I wanted to get some clarification about, some elucidation, as the late Mr. Manning used to say. To what extent a vet is a doctor and like another doctor? And to what extent a vet is sort of familiar with the human form and can probably provide solutions to problems that we have, quite apart from animals? Because, well, let me welcome you to the program, Dr. Loha, because what I'm saying is that in a lot of cases, when we go to the doctor, we have to tell the doctor what is happening with us, outside and inside. But an animal can't speak. So if you could figure out what is happening with an animal, you can figure out sometimes you have a better understanding from somebody who's saying, well, where they're hurting and what they're going through. I'm always curious about that.
Yes, of course, because actually we have to be detectives, because we have to follow all the signals and signs, because the animals cannot speak to us and tell us what's wrong. So we have to look at all these clinical signs. So we call it clinical signs and not symptoms, because we have to we use our observational skills to observe to know what diseases might be connected with what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Right. And people always say that sometimes vets are greater doctors than medical doctors, because we study all species. We treat all species except for humans.
Yeah. Right, and that's a critical point that, well, we could talk and animals can't talk. So when you take your dog or your cat or your bird to the vet.
Yeah, it's kind of like a pediatrician dealing with a 5-month-old baby cannot talk to the same way, similar.
Yeah. So I like the term veterinary medicine. Right, so we're talking here about rabies. What is rabies?
Rabies, a medical term, is acute viral encephalomyelitis, which actually means that is a disease of the central nervous system, or inflammation of the nervous system. Now, this disease is well known all through the world. It exists globally in every continent, except maybe Antarctica. And also it exists in all mammals across the board. The vector for the disease, rabies, is usually a carnivorous vector, such as dog, cat, skunk, weasel, mongoose. In Trinidad, it is the vampire bat.
Yeah, carnivorous because they eat meat.
Yeah, they eat meat, yes. Right? So the vampire bat is the vector for Trinidad. But also, rabies is also well known as a zoonotic disease, probably the most well-known zoonotic disease, meaning that is a disease that can be spread from animal to human. So you have to be very careful. That's why it makes it very important in our situation in Trinidad. Yeah.
And when somebody is described as being rabid, that has to do with it performing as though they have rabies?
Yes. When somebody is rabid, well, usually use that word rabid pertaining to the animals, right? And that refers to when the rabies has reached a stage in the system where it reaches the brain, and the animal starts to display clinical signs. As I spoke before about clinical signs, clinical manifestation. Yeah. So they start to show different symptoms of rabies. Most of the time they will foam at the mouth because they are unable to swallow, so the saliva cannot go down. They would have aversion from food and water, don't want to drink water, and we call that hydrophobia. So this is one of the signs. And they'll be
hydrophobia, because you can't swallow, you can't.
Well, they're basically afraid of water. When you present water, then they pull away, right? And they're also unable to drink because the esophagus is paralyzed, right? The swallowing mechanism is paralyzed, so they're unable to drink. So that is what we call a hydrophobia. So there's a number of clinical...
How do you treat that?
How you treat? Well, rabies is something, once it you reach the stage of clinical signs, it cannot be treated. Once you reach clinical signs, death is sure, fatality is sure. But it's 100% preventable with avoidance, with vaccination, and even if you realize that you're exposed in time, post-exposure vaccination can be done, right? Yeah. And vaccination of animals, livestock, would also prevent the spread of the rabies. Control of the vector too would also control the spread of rabies also.
Yeah. Are there times when the incidence of it or the presence of bats is more than other times in the year? Or are there periods over a period of years when we have to be more on the lookout than other times?
No, well, we It operates in cycles, right? But at this point in time, the population of vampire bats is very high in the country, but the Ministry of Agriculture, together with the anti-rabies unit, we have a unit called the anti-rabies unit, is diligent in reducing the population. Their purpose is to reduce the population.
Is that unit properly staffed, or as is the case in most places, do you have a shortage of staff at one level or the other?
Yeah, well, we lost, when I'm saying a lot of people retired, we need to replenish some of the staff. Yes, but they are very effective and funded, and this association, this anti-rabies unit has been around since 1935. Actually, we are the first country in the world to actually implement a program specifically, a government program specifically for the control of vampire bats in the country.
No kidding?
They were called the Bat Control Unit.
Yeah.
That is since colonial times. And then it became the anti-rabies unit in 1956.
Yeah.
Right? So basically 88 years they have been around.
Well, right. I think growing up, you used to see people coming around,
yeah,
to treat with bats and so on. And
yeah. So their purpose is basically to alleviate the threat, do certain actions in order to alleviate the threat of rabies in the country for livestock and human beings. So there's many methods of doing that.
Yeah, so to what extent, how do you divide between treating humans who may be infected by the bats as opposed to animals?
No, well, the animals who are infected by the bats, and we're sure they are showing signs of the rabies. In Trinidad, we have, traditionally has been the bovine, cows, buffalo usually, and we usually see ascending paralysis and staggering and recumbency. They get down and unable to stand up, and certain CNS behavior, So when we see that, we usually will call the animal and we'll actually do a test to ensure that to diagnose a definite diagnosis to make sure that's rabies.
Yeah.
Right? So that animal would not survive once the signs of rabies. So there's no treatment. We focus on prevention, and prevention is by vaccinating the animal. So all the susceptible animals in the country, we try to vaccinate them every year. Sometimes, depending on what the type of vaccine is, it could be every year or it could be every 3 years. But vaccination is important. We vaccinate and tag the animals.
So some animals require, or it is the kind of rabies that is involved where they would be required to be vaccinated annually or triannually?
No, well, it depends on the type of vaccine that we have.
Yeah.
Some are 1 year, some are 2. The length of time of effective immunization it varies, depending on the brand that we get.
Yeah, and are there times when you'll run out of stock and you have to wait? And
well, sometimes we have those problems. But if it's in a case of a human being exposed to rabies, like for instance, if a human being is bitten or bitten by a rabid dog, which would not happen in Trinidad because we have not had canine rabies since 1914. But we're very concerned about that because south of the border where the border is very porous and we have a lot of illegal immigrants and illegal animals coming in, there's canine rabies in South America, so we have to be mindful of that also.
And what state the surveillance mechanism is for those things? Because that's another area entirely, people coming and bringing animals with them and so on. So quite apart from people coming in the country legally, they're bringing animals that are an issue to be watched as well.
Yes, but when we do happen to be aware of it and we catch the people, or at least we catch the sometimes they abandon the animals on the shore.
Yeah.
But we know they're from the foreign land. We actually have to seize and basically euthanize them. Because we can't allow them in the country. Because we don't know what disease they're carrying. And this has been going on, more than 10 years, this has been an ongoing thing. Yeah.
You talked about the possibility of coming into contact with a rabid dog. How do you find that out?
No, well, we don't have that canine rabies in Trinidad. So, yeah. But if a dog bites you unprovoked, there's no reason, just bite you. Yeah. Right? That is usually a sign. Sometimes we have to observe the dog in quarantine, or observe the behavior and see if there's any development of the disease. But if an animal bites you, whether it's wild, dog, or whatever, or bat, the first thing you have to do is go to the pipe with soap and water and scrub the area for 15 minutes. Yeah. Right, for 15 minutes. Then contact your doctor immediately. Then you need to contact the county, you could contact the county veterinary officer, which is like myself, I'm the veterinary officer of St. George West. Yeah. And we could contact the anti-rabies unit to make them aware of the situation. And we'll also contact the veterinary public health. Veterinary public health will ensure that, will protect human life and make sure that the person is healthy. So in a case like that, you will have to do you may have to do a post-exposure vaccination of the person to make sure that they...
Yeah, and you're speaking to this question about the issue of dogs becoming rabid and what you'll do in that case. So is that the same as when somebody is described as a mad dog or a mad dog?
Yeah. That is a mad dog disease. That is if somebody's rabid. Yeah. Maybe the folklore about vampires and that kind of behavior, like, you know, is from the rabies virus, you know. The folklore about zombies and so on is also, it could be derived from the rabies virus, right? Because the behavior is similar. When a dog is infected by the virus, okay, usually when you get infected, the wound is filled with the viral load of the rabies, and it moves from cell to cell, and then eventually it will reach a nerve, a peripheral nerve, and that will go up the nerve and enter the spinal cord. When it reaches the spinal cord, it will ascend the spinal cord and eventually reach the brain. Yeah. When it reaches the brain, you'll start to see all these signs, and the dog will just start to move from a playful dog to a very aggressive dog, looking to bite anything that is wrong, right? Unprovoked. Bite the cage, bite stones, snap at people, bite other dogs, and they eventually will get paralyzed and all the bodily function will fail and they will die.
Yeah. Over a period of time?
Yeah.
Like how long that process?
That process could take between the time they start to display signs, and that could be about 2 weeks, right? But by that time, they already bit a number of other dogs, spread the disease, and maybe bit some human beings. Yeah. So thank God we don't have that in Trinidad.
We don't?
No, since 1914 was the last case.
Yeah. 1914?
1914? Yeah, 14 was the last case of canine rabies virus.
Yeah, that's 107, 108 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. Over 100 years ago.
What has been the cause of that, of us sort of wiping that out? If anything, it's just happened.
Well, we have very strict quarantine measures. For instance, rabies is prevalent in the United States and maybe in South America, canine rabies, but we have strict laws as far as quarantine. Animal has to be tested before it comes to Trinidad. Animal has to be vaccinated before it comes to Trinidad for the disease. We used to keep them in quarantine for a certain length of time, observing them when they come. Yeah. Right? So we have methods in place to make sure that it doesn't enter Trinidad. Yeah. So that is why illegal importation is a problem. When people come, you know, they come and they jump on a pirogue from Israel and they come with whatever livestock or their animals, and through, you know, on police borders, it becomes a problem. Because you never know what diseases enter in your country.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about what is known publicly as, you know, what's called port health arrangements and so on. But some people evade and avoid that. And, and surveillance of these things, it's iffy because if people find ways to get in, you know, unchecked and undetected, you don't know what's happening.
Yeah. But the only legal way to enter Trinidad is via the airport and the ports, right? So these things we supposed to have provide them with import permits when they come in to make, and we have to make sure that they have a health certificate, make sure everything is healthy before, because there are times that animals come in on the airline without, and they have to be sent back.
Or denied entry.
Denied entry, yes. Yeah. And that is to preserve the health of the community in Trinidad.
The health of the population.
Both human and animal, because as I told you before, this disease is a zoonose, meaning that it can be spread from animal to human. So it's a kind of one health thing, make sure that the humans are also protected.
Yeah. You said you're in charge of the area, St. George West. Just give us a sense again as to what constitutes St. George West.
St. George West,
from where to where?
St. George West is, well, my office is in Curep.
Yeah.
All right. But the borders of St. George West will be east as far as Wallerfield, west as far as Chagaramas, north as far as Maracas Bay, and south as far as Caroni. Yeah. But we have veterinary officers offices throughout the country.
Yeah.
Curep is one, Wallerfield is the next, El Reposo is the next office there. There's also Chase Village, Penal, Craignish Princeton, and also Rio Claro.
Okay. So health is one of those areas where we still have this idea of the county divisions, because we're into regional corporations now. When we used to be county, we had 8 counties and so on. But a lot, health and education is still sort of subdivided based on the former county arrangements. So you have St. George West and you have St. George
as far as
County Caroni.
Well, as far as agriculture is concerned, yes, it's like that. But we have North Division and South Division, Regional Administration North and Regional Administration South. So basically, it's split in. It's also governed by administratively by 2 subdivisions.
Right. Is there anything that you wanted to say that you didn't have the chance to say as we wind up about why we're talking about this issue?
Well, we need the anti-rabies unit also need the support, and we also need to. Well, we control the population by doing certain things, a process called night trapping. Night trapping. And that is because we focus on the two bats that cause the problem, which is the common vampire bat, Desmodus rotundus, and the white-winged vampire bat, the Mias youngi, right? We focus on those 2. So what we do, we go out in the night, the anti-rabies unit go out in the night, they set traps, they set nets, they collect, they catch the bats, they identify the vampire bats, and they also paste them with anticoagulant poison basically on them. And then they fly back to their roost. When they go to the roost, they socialize, they're very social animals, and in grooming, the anticoagulant will spread from 1 bat to about 30 to 40. So in the last...
That's a multiplier effect.
Yeah, the reason I mention is because we have been making efforts to decrease the population, and since April of this year, we have caught and paced 400 bats, right? And that 400 bats will lead to the death of 12,000 to 16,000 bats. So it's a very effective measure, and that is one of the ways of we control the population.
Yeah, I never imagined that this would have been such a fascinating discussion. We haven't gotten halfway through this. We'll find another way to get you back to continue to talk about that, the connection between animals and people. In this case, that is what this is about.
Okay.
Dr. Nigel Loha, Veterinary Officer, the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, and son of the late great Sil Loha. Let's say that. Let's put that out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, one thing I have to mention, I didn't tell you the phone numbers.
Okay.
The anti-rabies head office is the National Animal Disease Center, NADC, and the number is, let me get the number. The number for that is 693-2910. And anytime that a farmer has a problem with bats, they could contact this number. My office, the St. George West, the number is 331-1433.
693-2910 and 331-1423.
Yes, sir.
1433. 1433. Yeah. Thank you very much. We will take a break. Stay with us. We're coming back shortly.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Here's your chance to win a brand new Mazda CX-30, courtesy Movietown. Simply spend $200 or more at dbesttoys.com, Movietown, Port of Spain. Promotion ends November 12th.
Visit the store, you better shop online. You better call us now, I'm telling you why. dbesttoys.com is Movietown, Port of Spain. Hey!
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to the program. Well, we're going to wrap up, but let's just tell you something before that, and we'll show you to watch this in a moment. But take a look at this picture. This was after the meeting of the Trinidad and Tobago, well, representative of the government, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of National Security, and the head of the diplomatic corps, well, the head of the diplomatic presence in Trinidad and Tobago at the U.S. Embassy, Shante Moore. This was a meeting called in the wake of the fact that the U.S. has issued a new advisory to citizens in the United States not to come to Trinidad. Following that advisory, which caused some issues a couple of weeks ago about our crime status and so on, and related matters. So this is a meeting having taken place about another advisory to U.S. citizens, and this is a picture that comes out of that. You would want to know what they were talking about with such gaiety and laughter, when in fact the meeting was called because of that situation, a new advice to U.S. citizens not to come to Trinidad. You make of that what you will. We ask you to watch this. Melody Illegal, a marathon swimmer, conquers St. Lucia Channel amid a lightning storm. Take a look at this.
Talking again about sports. She's a mom, a marathon swimmer who has swam miles upon miles upon miles in open waters around the world.
So New at 10, Delaney Bry tells us about this Delafield woman's latest amazing conquest.
When we first met Melody Legal, she was just dipping in for the summer season. Today, she's one of only 10 athletes to swim and complete the St. Lucia Channel.
I signed up for this swim the end of last year. It's fairly new, and in 2019, it kind of started off as one of the big swims.
Looking to challenge herself, Melody traded up from lakes in Wisconsin to the Caribbean Sea.
The swells were about 3 to 3.5 feet for most of the swim, which she told me in the beginning that the first 3-4 hours were going to be the hardest. And I think in my head I envisioned it would just get flat after that, and it never did.
A veteran marathon swimmer, the 21-plus mile path wasn't on the top of her concerns. But Mother Nature did try to knock her off course.
They started the foghorn to let me go. And at that time I was like, okay, I got this. You know, it's dark, a little bit dark still, and I started swimming. But then soon after I started, there was a pop-up lightning storm.
Forced to briefly exit the water, once the storm passed, Melody happily abandoned ship.
Some people might think it's an advantage to get out because you can rest, but it's really not, because you're so pumped up and you're just thinking about the swim, and then you got to sit there.
However, there were some shocks Melody couldn't avoid.
Yeah, like a man of war, there was a big whip on my arm. And then there's these things called no-see-ums. And they kind of like sting you in the water, and I could feel them too.
Riding the wave of determination, Melody eventually reached land.
The swim itself took me 13 hours and 14 minutes.
Okay, and that was over 1 or 2 days?
That was all Monday the 26th of September. I started about 5:30 and I had to get out for the lightning, and then I landed about 8 o'clock on the beach in Martinique.
Ending the year with a win, during the winter, Melody will have to settle for laps inside.
This is kind of the reality. I'm going to be back in the pool for a few months until it gets nice again. But I figure I get about almost 5 months of outdoor swimming for Wisconsin. I don't think that's that bad.
Whether it's a small pool or an ocean, Melody Legal doesn't sink. She only swims. Delaney Bry, TMJ 4 Sports.
All right, as we wrap it up, just tell you what's in the papers this morning. This is Newsday, the front page. A murder in a Panyard and a boy 3 in hospital after an attack by a dog, coming after our discussions earlier. And the Newsday Tobago, that's what it looks like. Medals for honest pupils, no motive for the SRP Lashley's killing, and the story of the PNM elections heading to court. Well, that's our broadcast for this edition of the program. We thank you for watching. We thank our guests. We tell you can stay in touch with us here at WESN on all our social media platforms. Send your emails to amprime@wesncc.com. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. Well, we tell you to stay here. In half an hour, we have news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small. We'll see you tomorrow.
WESN